So we need to reconvene our open session. I need a motion to reconvene. Thank you, John. Second. Okay. All in favor of reconvening? Raise your hand. All right, thank you very much. I'd like to welcome all of you here this evening. Please stand with us and join us in the reciting of the pledge. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Well, we don't have any recognitions this month, and there are no visitors that have signed up, so we'll get straight to the consent agenda then. I need a motion to approve all the items on the consent agenda. Okay, well, and Beth. Any discussion on any of those items, questions before we vote? Okay. So we'll take a vote then to approve all items on the consent agenda. All in favor, raise your hand. All right, motion carries. Thank you. Sorry. We'll move into the superintendent's report.
All right, we'll start out. I'm going to let some other individuals do the report for me. So I asked Mr. Groner, Ms. Dix, and Dr. Freeman to visit about what they've been doing at the high school with vaping and our students and vaping presentation to give an update on their program and the great things that they're doing. So you guys want to talk about it?
Yeah, great. Should we come up front?
Yeah, why not?
Okay.
Go ahead, Mark. Go ahead.
Hi, everybody. Over the last few years, we noticed that the vaping problem for sure at the high school was getting progressively worse. And our policies had been mainly to reward students for vaping with in-school suspension. 3 days on the first offense, 5 days on the second. And it didn't seem like we were making much headway. So last year, Mrs. Dix organized a meeting with local law enforcement, and we had kind of a brainstorming session. We learned that local law enforcement couldn't do much for us from the legal standpoint, but we had the idea that maybe education offered a way forward. So we came up with the idea that we would add an educational component to the consequences for getting caught with a vape. So we changed our policy a bit, and we lessened the time in ISS, but we added a vaping cessation clinic or seminar that the student had to attend after school hours with their parent. And that was kind of the big earth-shattering change. When we announced, I see our students are smiling a little bit, when we made that announcement, it was well received by the majority of the student body. I think they all felt like, hey, maybe we're onto something here. So we also wanted to do a better job of tracking how many students were getting caught vaping. We had been a little inconsistent sometimes in how that was being reported. So we organized some Google Forms and sheets, and we found that in the first semester so far, we've had 34 first-time offenders. That's grades 5 through 12. What we also found was that after our first 2 vaping cessation seminars, we didn't have enough to have the third one. So in other words, we had 10 in the first one, 8 in the second one, and by the time we got to the third session, we only had 1. So it didn't make sense to have the seminar for 1. We rolled it into October 29th, and we have 10 scheduled for October 29th. Aaron's put something up behind you. This is just kind of an example of part of the PowerPoint that we created. We just included some facts about vaping. We included some short videos. It's funny, when we started to put this together, the information was changing so fast. As soon as we would put something together, it was already old. And that's been a good thing too. The news stories about how bad vaping has the vaping related illnesses and things have helped us, not hurt us. And I hate that it's that way, but it is helping us in our cause. So I also wanted to let you know that it does seem like now what we're dealing with are repeat offenders. In other words, I think that we've made a difference with some kids, but unfortunately we have some kids that are already addicted. And it doesn't matter, it doesn't seem to matter what we're gonna do with them, they're battling addiction. So one of the consequences that we put in was that on a second offense, a student has to receive mandatory addiction counseling. And we have 2 students that are attending that right now. We're waiting to see how that goes. We have a 3rd student who was scheduled to do the counseling, but before they got to the counseling, they had their 3rd offense. And on a 3rd offense, we suspend them out of school. So that's the data that we have, and that's kind of what we're doing. Like I said, the main change has been that we've added education. In addition to the vaping cessation seminar, we also did a presentation to all of our daily advisory classes, so all students got that information. We also sent an email early in the year to parents to make sure that they were aware of the issue. So we're definitely shining a light on it. I guess it was about a month ago, Stephanie, we met with the health department, and the health department said we were the only school that they knew of in the county that was doing anything like this. So
And they followed up with us a few times, and they plan to have a presence at our next parent meeting next Tuesday to just offer some additional support or resources if anyone's looking for it. Which I think is cool. Now we're forming another partnership with another community group. That's exciting.
So we'll see how it goes. The good thing is we're kind of tracking it. We've got data. Hopefully we see that these numbers are going to continue to fall. We can, just talking about what it looks like and feels like, the restrooms are in a better place now. That's where most of the vaping goes. Last year there were kids who didn't want to use the restroom because it was full. We've also stepped up our supervision of those areas. I stand in a lot of bathrooms. That's pleasant work.
Lots of fun.
Lots of fun. But that has a good effect too. So we're trying to keep those kids on the run as much as we can. So I do feel like we're making progress. In speaking to a few kids, and I think the kids are pretty honest, that what we're hearing from them is that the vast majority of kids who were vaping have stopped. And what we have left are just the hardcore kids who we're going to have to pry from their cold dead hands, for lack of a better.
Did all of your chills?
We had a good rate. I think I had that
On
down
a
as well.
positive note with that, we've only had grades 5 through 12, one parent who didn't support this plan. So one junior high family determined that they did not support this and chose to have their student suspended out of school. But the majority, I mean,
The fir-
33 out of 34 people, that's pretty good support.
First session, we had 8 out of 11 show up with a parent. One had refused and they took the suspension. And 2 were able to reschedule. The second session, we had 8 out of 10. And again, we were able to reschedule one of those. So we've had a high rate of attendance. That's going well. Questions?
Well, I appreciate you putting this plan into place.
Well, we felt like we had to do something. It was very frustrating. It was hurting our kids and eating up our resources, and something had to give. So education and the parental involvement, I think those are going to be an important factor.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Early graduation.
We'll be asking for approval in new business for 50 early graduates from the high school building and 14, I believe, from the Learning Center. And I know this is a topic of discussion every year, so I wanted to give some information. In the board packet, I gave you 3 different reports. One of them was the total number of early graduates dating back to 2014. One of them was what they pursued after graduation. Now that's the 180-day follow-up that we have to supply to the Department of Education. And the third report that's in there is the same as the first, but it's broken down by building, meaning how many kids from the Learning Center each year and how many kids from the high school. Yes, there has been a significant increase in early graduation the past 5 years. However, our opportunities have increased, meaning we do offer flex scheduling, online courses, and summer school. So out of those 50 kids that you're going to be asked to approve tonight, I went back through their transcripts one by one, and I can tell you that 20 of them earned credit at the junior high. So they are walking into the high school with 1 or 2 credits in Algebra 1 and English 1, so that is putting them ahead of the game already, and it's 20 out of 50. 15 of them earned credit in summer school, so they went to summer school and took a personal finance, a driver's ed, a PE class, a keyboarding class, so they too then earned additional credit outside of the traditional school year.
Yes. Out of the junior high, when they earn a credit, is that an advanced course for them as a junior high student?
Typically, you don't take Algebra 1 until you're a freshman.
Right, but
So
those are
they're
your
taking-
upper
Yes.
math kids.
Yes. And there were 20, now 20 of them could have had the Algebra 1, the English 1, or both. I didn't segregate that
Okay.
much, it just there's 20 of them. The other important thing to note is DESI's graduation handbook changed 2 or 3 years ago. It used to be that you could not graduate more than 1 semester before your cohort group. So that's why you do see a couple of juniors mixed into this. Now, the handbook states that a student may graduate when they have completed all of their high school requirements, whether that is in 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, 6 years, or 7 years. It does not specify. They can attend high school up to the age of 21. So that too has allowed, and I can, in the one report, we do have a large amount compared to some of our neighboring districts. I do know that Northwest, Dr. Freeman had heard in a meeting, they will have 80 this year.
How many?
80. DeSoto has 1 or 2, but it's also important to note, their system is not set up like ours is. They do not offer junior high credit in DeSoto, and their summer school is strictly a credit recovery situation where we supply our kids with the opportunity to gain credit. That's not just credit recovery. So they're not feeling the class and going to summer school. These kids are willingly going to summer school to get some of their additional classes out of the way. And these are, it's also important to note, you have to have 24 credits to graduate from high school. You can earn 7 credits in 1 year at the high school. So if you're not failing a class at the time you graduate, if you were to stay, you're earning 28 credits in the 24 for a regular diploma. Also, there's been some discussion about prom and graduation ceremonies. Board policy does allow our early grads to come back for prom and for graduation ceremonies. And I will tell you, in all the years that policy has been in place, and I think it's about 8, we have never had an issue with a student who leaves us in December to come back for a graduation ceremony, meaning they're not acting up or things of that nature. And in terms of prom, if that policy were to be changed, we do have outside guest forms. So my guess is if I'm leaving in December and I'm not allowed to go to prom, I'm going to be Mrs. Saharsky's guest for prom. So they will
Which, that's okay, except that, I guess my perspective is when you graduate, you're finished. And you can, come back as a high school, guest or a date, et cetera. But I was very surprised when that was allowed, number one, and then it was a policy, number 2,
I guess I'm
personally.
going to disagree with you.
Okay.
I feel like if they've done the work, and you shouldn't punish them. I mean, what I'm saying, they've done a lot of work, extra work to graduate early. To me, and walking at graduation is something they learn.
Well, I would think that you have graduation in December. you know, to me, I was very surprised to see the high numbers, so you guys weren't concerned with the high numbers of early graduates, and I know it has increased tremendously since my 5 years.
Well, it's because
Because of-
truly, I believe it's because of our opportunities have increased, as well, and they're in the same class, these early graduates are in the same classes as everybody else, so they're sitting next to somebody who's their sophomore year, who's gonna go a full 4 years in the same English 2 class, so their requirements are exactly the same. They're not on a fast track, they're not on a though.
I mean, you do have credit recovery during the day, I'm assuming.
Yes, we do have credit recovery.
So are there standards that they have to meet prior to getting into those? Like I know, because that's other, I'm assuming, online classes.
Into a credit recovery course, well, absolutely, they have to be efficient in their credits. Now, the learning center is going to operate just a tad bit differently.
Right.
They're working off of a quarter system and not off a semester. So you have the potential to gain more credits quicker here at the learning center than you would at the traditional high school. Because they'll have a whole 90-minute block of lab work, so they're sitting there doing their online labs is what they're called, to get those, that's how they gain those credits faster.
Out of the number that we have here, is there a higher percentage of students from the Learning Center in this number than there are from the regular high school?
There's 14 here and 50 across the street.
I think, schools are changing. Pattonville's got one of their schools where they don't even go by grade levels. And they've got 5th graders taking, advanced high school classes. And they even had a problem where they didn't know what to do because they had juniors who needed Calc 3 and they had to go to colleges. So I think it's changing.
Well, another opportunity that I didn't mention before when you talk about change, we have several students who do not come to our school at all. They're on what we call a LOCAP program. They're strictly being educated virtually through the Zoo K-12 program. So things are changing. We kind of chuckled a little bit. I don't know if we should laugh, but Kathy and I were talking, like, are we even going to need like high school in 4 years? But because there's just so many more opportunities available. We've got kids attending 2 hours over here at the high school, then they're going to Jeffco to take college classes. We've got our AA program that wasn't available.
How many of those students are just the virtual students, the MOCAP? How many of our kids are doing that
5.
on?
The law went into effect in January. We had 2 in January starting. Neither were successful, and we've got 4.
100%.
So with the credit recovery kids, is there, you said they have to be, do they have to be a semester behind? I don't know what the, or
For what
just
program? I mean, it just kind of depends.
like credit recovery, not the Missouri options.
Okay, what
They're
credit
making
recovery,
that
for
credit.
instance, for summer school, if they fail a class during the school year, we're encouraging them to come to summer school.
But you do that during the school year, during the school year as well.
Yes, we do have an
Okay,
extra
that's right.
credit that does that, and we don't have a, I mean, honestly, we prioritize the kids for how much room she's got. So if you're credit deficient 7 credits and your buddy's only 1 credit deficient, we're taking 7 over
7
1.
words. So is there a limit, not a number limit, but a time limit? Like say, okay, graduation is going to be in May, that in April, more kids might be added because they're falling short, or does it run by the semester? You said over here it's by the quarter.
Over here, it's by the quarter. At the high school with Miss Palmisano, she does run a semester class. That's not to say you're in the middle of a semester and you're failing and you're supposed to graduate, that a counselor
Pull
won't
somebody
say,
out because
or, we can move it this way. I don't typically do that very often, but it does happen, yes.
it's words and-
but typically your credit recovery kids that are attending the program at the high school are not the ones on your early graduate list. The reason they're on the early graduation list because of the learning center is because of the way the program is.
There probably are a couple on there that are some on there. I don't know how the numbers though, but
But it's more, it's less likely.
that's very less like, much like.
Well, in reading the letters, to me, it was obvious that there are some that are on the top of the class.
Absolutely.
Like, you know, I am assuming the juniors
Yes.
very likely
They're
are.
very
It's not-
motivated students.
Yes,
Yes.
because when in my first year, there weren't nearly as many, but I struggled to read some of the letters.
Right.
And some of these are some of them are form letters. But, that's obvious, but some of them are, you know, your higher level kids that,
They have a plan.
yes.
And I think it's important too, these kids are from all over the spectrum. You have
Mhm.
high-level kids, you have kids with kids, you have kids who
Right.
need to go work for their families, you
That's
have
right.
kids who are gonna work this semester so they can pay for their own college, you have average Joes, you know, they're from all,
And if you rewind 5 to 7, 10 years, it was mainly those at-risk kids, you know, the teen parents, they need to work out their doing, and not because of the extra credits. But that's the change of education, you know, online stuff, virtual education. We may not have buildings and everything. I'll be gone by then.
Well, it's just important that we serve the students rather than making the serve the school by bringing in the money. If they put in the
As long
effort,
as we're not.
but yeah, if they put in the effort, reward the effort.
We don't want to hold it back
No, absolutely
if
not.
they're ready or.
I mean, when I was in school, it was kind of like, you have, not a prison term, but you have to do X number of years, you know? You had to do the time, regardless. It's a good change.
Because some kids, school is not for them. That's right.
A couple of the things is, wanted to discuss, kind of debrief some of the MSBA conference and some of the sessions that individuals attended, as just some ideas for discussion, some mind-taking that I thought were kind of neat or interesting. Just talk about it, you can pursue, or just gather your thoughts if you attended or not, and kind of looking at different things. One was the literacy boxes. I don't know if anyone's ever seen those. It was kind of, I actually put some pictures in there. Is Scholastic was talking about this, and different schools have those where you work within the community. It could be a joint project. I thought about some of our students. I see a gentleman over there shaking his head. Thought about students across grade levels, even like shop classes, etc., co-curricular type thing, of where they actually build boxes and you put library books in. And it's kind of like we'll call it a red box. I term blue boxes. But where kids are able to go and grab books in the summer, you know, and maybe local businesses, or you can even do scavenger hunts and do some stuff like that, or even just outside of a lot of schools. When you look online, some of them are even like right above a subdivision, you know, and you pick one and do some things. So that may be something that was interesting to me. Early childhood programs, which a lot of emphasis on that. I would attend personally a lot of information on that, from how to get started, facilities, short and long-term planning. When I came back, and I came back talking about, we have some classroom space. You know, we hear a lot about the need of students when they come in. A kindergarten classroom, our students are kind of all over the board. Is some students can read, some students aren't even, they have multiple needs. And there's a big push in the state of Missouri for this and the benefits of early childhood is, and I was visiting with the Central Office Administrative team, like, can we use some of our classrooms? And that's why we have a great admin team, is that like, it's actually potentially a deterrent to start right away. With just small, Ms. Genge, because she's already been exploring grants, there's like, if you need a facility, there's like storm evacuation centers, like the old FEMA grants, like literally, they would pay for that. For a building, if you are a portion of that, you're building an early childhood center, but if you build a portion of the building, it's a storm center for the community. So you end up helping fund your building through a grant. But one of the things is, if we just started an early childhood classroom, then you have it. And you can't add to it, so you're supplanting. So you essentially become ineligible. So it's kind of one of those things where it's almost becomes counterintuitive if we're gonna do it, put a plan in place, 1, 2, 3, like year plan of, okay, from a school funding standpoint, setting money aside, where would we put it? What grants do we need to apply for to get an early childhood grant, to do it the right way, instead of kind of that slow process in building? We can slow process and build, but it probably is costing more money in a sense to really expand it. Then we may be handcuffed to really expand it. So just something, that doesn't mean we don't start planning and of short, like, what are the steps we need to do when we want to get the grant ready? When we want to do that to maximize the funding, because it has to be fiscally feasible, and the state does reimburse for pre-kindergarten now on some ADA. So community relations, communications, and grant writing. We've been talking about that, and that kind of goes really with the short and long-term strategic planning is one of the things that we've talked a lot about. They're intertwined, and we're even talking about tonight with agribusiness and the opportunities that we have in the district already as far as at the high school and all the different buildings. The farm is opening up a tremendous amount of educational opportunities, but it's also opening up the district's ability to potentially get grants, and a wide variety of grants that potentially pay for things way more than just a farm-to-table grant. I don't know, Mr. Allison had looked at one, and they're doing the trails. We let the community use the, like, fish in the lake. There's state park grants, and you could buy a bobcat to maintain the facility, which is, maintenance is able to use a bobcat, because you now have a facility that's able to be used by the public. Our Jefferson Mercy Grant, and combining all of these grant opportunities, and those are just the big ones. There's tons of like target classroom grants, and our bus grant. One of the things that we find hard is, I'll go and look at grants, and listen, we're all looking at grants, is, then you get called out, and like, I gotta run down, is, it may be something where there may be a need, or I think there is a need for looking and exploring a position that's kind of a community liaison, of writing grant. I truly believe that this position would pay for itself. And that would be kind of the calling to that person, is you need to pay for yourself to maintain. It really would be and pay for themselves in spades. And we have something that's unique that is also applying for grant writing and getting the things that we need. And not just a matching grant, right? Spending money on kids, but trying to incorporate that and growing and maintaining our community relations. All that's going to be kind of included in developing when we talk about the short and long-term goal. I have a phone call tomorrow. You can call back Mr. Ricker, because we're kind of at our school improvement plan time. putting that together and involving the community is, and really digging into what do we want to do strategically and in the next 5 years, 2, 3, 5 years, and then even beyond, to set the plan in place, but have an authentic plan that's measurable and, to help make decisions financially, to add a program, et cetera. And so, and we want, like early childhood, we want an early childhood program, okay? By year 3, we're gonna have the grants in place and the funding for it. Or we're going to set money aside to pay for it. And not that we've been doing it, but that's the laser focus and focus together. So that's kind of a lot of good information on that, on some of the designing and putting those things together. Anything else?
And there were others that
Yeah.
might want to share from your conference experience. You don't have to, but if you want to.
I went to all of the courses I went to were from the idea of Michael's presentation he gave us about the school of the future. And it was pretty cool to see what some school districts are doing now. This new approach where, you've got like the University of Missouri, but then there's schools inside that, like School of Engineering, School of whatever. Well, the Independence School District in Independence, Missouri, their high school, they've got 4 academies inside their high school. And their goal with every graduate is they graduate with either an IRT certification, like machine shop technology, culinary, travel, or associate's degree in that particular field that they want to go into. And they've got a Cisco networking lab, so they've got kids graduating from high school going straight to working for Cisco and different companies with networking. They got a full machine shop. They got commercial kitchens where the chefs teaching. And with that, they leased a building in the downtown Independence. I guess it's a historic district or whatever. And the school has a bakery that's run by the students. They've got a screen printing studio, and they've got an art studio that's all run by the students and through their classes that they take. Just super, super cool stuff. And a lot of it is integrating more vocational stuff into the schools as well as the college part. I thought it was pretty cool.
I attended one on the long-term strategic planning, and I can't recall now the district, but they went through their entire process of involving the community and what they believed as, I guess, administrators, teachers, staff, that they needed. After they got through with their process of this strategic planning and involving the community, they found out that that wasn't what they needed at all. That, with all the community input, their whole plan changed, but it was all based on what the community felt they needed. And it was a real positive, I thought it was an excellent session. And, that I thought that we could make use of when we do this, do our strategic plan.
Is that end up with an innovation?
Yes. An innovation center is what they ended up with. That's not what they thought they needed to begin with. So I thought the conference in general was a really good one. A lot of good information and all, the programs that were presented.
John always talked.
I forgot one.
Oh, I don't know.
No, that's fine.
The school has a bank. They got a partnership with a bank. And of course, it's a real bank, there's a management team around it. But the kids run the bank, and they see every part. They're a teller, they're a loan officer, I can't believe it.
childhood centers, like the one in St. Charles, and it said that they actually did, the community donated their playground is downtown St. Charles. So the kids play in the bank, play in the bakery, and it was all fully funded. I mean, it's like $100,000 and it was just paid for by these partnerships. And Coca-Cola's got, you know, like the playground there. So it's just kind of interesting, but it's also partnerships and grants.
We talked about those literacy boxes, having businesses help to adopt individual boxes too, which would spread out the unit.
One of the things, I didn't put it on here, but I wanted to mention, Bridle Ridge. We'd like to have kind of a dedication and an open house. And I know I'm not gonna be able to, I'm gonna miss somebody, so I apologize. But I wanna recognize Mr. Bass and his team, Tammy Crow. Just like example this morning, I actually had to call Melissa, and I'm like, what are you doing? You gotta come down to the farm. If you find me wandering around, I apologize, because I was just amazed at what, not just our staff, Tammy Crow was in the riding arena, like vacuuming the cobwebs out. They've wiped it down. You go in there, and I mean, it looks immaculate. It's so exciting to the work that they've done. Dylan and along the fence, Mayor Russell is, if you've driven by, he's mowed all the grass right down to the pond and on his own and coming, I mean, it looks like the front lawn out there right now. And just so many volunteers, Mr. Allison mowing during the cross-country season, Miss Jackety, walking with her students over there. They already have a fence up to put some goats in, and she had students over there putting different things in. Preparing for that is they dug out, there's an old manure spreader. That's literally the antiques and such over there. But that facility already, and you've seen the fence. You got to see the inside, and the veterinarian house. Just, literally, I just get excited when I talk about just walking around like it's coming together. But we need to probably schedule an open house. A couple different things is thinking when. Kind of a thought process. Get your guys' opinion about Christmas-ish. Towards holiday season, maybe do like a kind of that would be fully ready, throw some holiday things there, or just like a Christmas tree or lighting it up, which we can decorate some of that. Well, yeah, I mean, but potentially, I mean, we have rocks, we have a fire pit. I mean, you can truly.
Or tree lighting, like it could be a thing, like, I get excited too.
Well, and the thing is, that's where when I say wandering around.
They do.
Where the old koi pond, where the original house is now is a flat area that could be just Christmas tree. But to do something that the community's gonna come out and incorporate in a minute. So we're thinking like a December, what date? We have the board meeting on the 19th, Tuesday the 17th, 2 events in 1 week. They have the Christmas parades on the 14th, which is a Saturday. We looked at that previous Thursday, but Mr. Betts, I think, is actually off, so that made it. When would you, that's for, is there a specific night of the week that may be better?
Are you gonna have open house for the other buildings too, the junior
We
high,
can,
all?
yeah, we can
Okay.
do it to where that night
Okay.
you can go across to visit all of them.
Maybe get your admin team and everybody sit down and compare schedules or something, because
If we do that, as long as we try to do it on a Tuesday or Thursday night, probably being the best, or those bad nights. Tuesday or Thursday, avoiding a Friday, avoiding Wednesday, this time of year.
Not December 24th.
That's what we could.
Avoiding Christmas.
That's what I was thinking.
Holiday, we'll
So-
have to check the schedule, of course, we run a lot of.
Basketball gets rolling and such that, but, establish that, maybe we'll communicate via email, just locking it down so we can get some invitations or postcards and send those out.
Put it on the.
Just inviting people to come out, kind of tied around a holiday theme. So, but thank you to all of those individuals who've been working so hard. It looks amazing. One of the things to that is we need to get a plaque commemorating this at the district building. Bridal Ridge Farm is, from what I've been told, is the original name. It's commonly known as the Hall Farm, and I asked Ms. Hall, that kind of came up in conversation. And so I didn't know if that was the name the country given it, but it kind of sounds like that was an original name.
Is that what she said?
Yeah, well, she asked if it was gonna stay that name, and kind of went into it, and then I've asked around, and others have said, oh yeah, that was like the original name. The community, I think, always,
We called it the Hall Farm.
the Hall Farm, what do we want to call the barn, or, on there is just the Bridal Ridge Farm property, do we do a, I don't wanna make it complicated.
Who are you gonna offend?
It would be great to let the kids throw some names out there.
Can't have a contest.
It would be funny.
But if it's, that, my thought process is Bridal Ridge was a historic thing, and maybe it's simple. You know, it's on the campus, and there's gonna be
I call it farm. I like the word.
Bridal Ridge Farm, and that'll be on, we'll leave the sign as is, because we're not replacing a lot of
There you go.
that. Right, but inside, because it'll be on the barn part. Is that okay?
So you're not gonna put the name Hillsboro on it?
Hillsboro will be on the sign, we were talking about there, in the lower part of that sign, we're incorporating Hillsboro, but like you drive by, we tear down the Bridal Ridge sign, or we leave Bridal Ridge, and, you know, on the campus at Hillsboro R3. Because really, 50 years from now, there's gonna be probably different buildings on the back part, but the barn and, does that sound okay?
Okay. So we'll move on to the financial report, and Kelly Ginge isn't here tonight, so I think that's something you're doing.
Yes, very briefly, she, let me open that up. Things are trending like she anticipated. One thing she wanted to point out is our total fund balance. When you look at that blue line up there, significantly, if you go down, I'll pull it back to the total fund balance is higher than it has in previous years. That number there includes the debt service amount, all the money that was pushed into there. So when that gets paid out, prepaid bonds, et cetera, but yes, it looks, we have a lot of money, our balances are. Yeah, it's not like, hey, we're gonna go spend that on different things. That's, our balances are higher because we have money that we can use for prepaid. Which you trend, if you go down to that line you'll see is actually lower than last year because those are the operating funds. So those are a decrease due to the proposition C items. So she said the budget's tracking like she anticipates, and we're on track. They have been in to do the district audit. We've had some new auditors as a part of Daniel Jones, so they've changed some of their protocols and what they were requesting of her. So she'll present that for final approval in December. But she said if you have any questions, please contact her regarding any of those items.
Okay. We'll move on then to the technology report.
quarters. We had instrument campus training for Doug. We learned sort of the back end piece that you don't see in Infinite Campus as much, how to work with information with the database from reports. That was a 4-day training. That was really good for him to go to. Karen finished the Moses Core Data report for October. That's a big cycle for her. She spends a lot of time on that, so she worked hard to get that done. We got a new security system up at the farm. We had to fix a couple of cameras, whether it was a cable run or a camera that was already existing. So we used existing equipment to save some money, and then put in a server for the building, so we got that going. And then I wanted to share some pictures real quick of what everybody doesn't see. In the background of boxes to the ceiling of Chromebooks on this last order that we had to unbox and deploy. And then we've got computers that we were building, so those are all the cases. And then a bunch of parts. And then we took over Grury's lab at the high school, so he doesn't know that we trashed his room over the summer. But we made it look pretty before we left. So. And we appreciate the library letting us take over their closet and manage for a while. And that's all I've got.
Thank you very much. We'll move on then to the facilities and grounds.
Get some lunch. I'll make mine shorter. Actually, I just wanted to say that we have been busy with the forum. It's been great. We actually enjoyed it, to be honest with you, but we have had a lot of help. I will say that. Dr. Eisen's right. Teacher behind us has done a great job with us, as well as our custodians on the maintenance staffs and so forth. We still have a lot of work to do to make it what we want it to look like. But if you go over there, you'll see trees barked with blue, and those are some that are coming out. And so they're not anything wrong with them, just got to come out for the dead or something. But we got a lot of work to do, and we're going to make it look good. We really will. But we do have to say we have a lot of support from our community as well. We see that we talk with the public works departments, that they help us. We've been in contact with Brian, with the fire department, and everybody else. So I think we've got a good community with what we're doing there. So I think this is going to be a great project. So we're looking forward to it. But I just basically threw some stuff in there that sometimes everybody doesn't know about or doesn't recognize. But since there really wasn't a whole lot we were doing other than our normal things that we do every month and every year for the teachers and the buildings and so forth. And doing the 162 work orders we did, we also watched some other things we do and what the administration does and what the school district does. And it's pretty interesting just to sit back and look at that sometimes. If you can get a chance to go to high school, administration, a lot of them, staff up there, Mrs. Hildebrand, I think, had a big part of this, and Mrs. Ginch, but it was really neat. If you haven't seen the front walk, just the picnic tables and the planters and stuff like that, and what that's going to look like when they actually get everything moving and clean and sharp, and it'll look really sweet, especially in the spring when the flowers and all that are up. Right now, it's really good looking though. So the presentations are neat. If you go to different school districts and stuff, just take a peek at some of the other school districts, and you don't see that sometimes. Yeah, you get great teachers at other school districts, I won't say they don't, but just our presentations alone is just amazing just to see what we can do. But I see that all the time, and it makes me feel good, so I hope it does everybody else. And I can do it, just telling they did it, so, but it's cool to watch them. But junior high's got the red ribbon week this week. If you don't know what that is, it has to do with abuse and so forth. I think that's pretty cool with what they're tying in with what we just seen earlier this evening. They've got the veterans tribute they're doing on Friday, November the 8th. If you are available to come over and watch what they do. And Mr. Reinhauer does one also at his building. It's really neat to watch what they do if you've never seen one of them. They put on pretty neat stuff. And the veterans are very proud of it too. And we should be proud of them. But they do a great job, I have to tell them that. Character director, They had the intermediate, I did not get to attend it, I was out of town on that one too, but they did have character breakfast on the 19th, I believe, Scott? Yeah. I think it went good, did it not?
It did.
From what I heard.
Very well.
Great time, they do a great job with that. Elementary did get the center room with Mr. Whitehead. He got the mats in, so the kids are in the center room or even in the recovery rooms, which we hope never use much, but they did get mats in the floor. They got them on the wall, so the kids they have to be in there and they're working in there, they don't go there. So that's a very simple area, and Mr. Whitehead did a great job getting all that lined out, so. We get into elementary and so forth, also, as you'll see where they got the Halloween concert coming up on the 29th. If you got anybody like grandkids like I do, they're gonna be, so I can see it. But that's pretty cool, the concert they do. Mrs. Smith does a great job. Hawk Trot is Friday, November 15th. If everyone wants to get out there, no guarantee on the weather, sorry. So, but it's fun, I watch it. I can't run it, it's slow, but it's fun. Then the movie nights and so forth, I put on there just so you know it's there. Same Halloween, this coming Saturday, 26th at the primary. That's a good one, they do a great job with that. They have a lot of good sources, I think that's a good way to keep our kids safe too. So, wanted to bring that up to you so you can see it. And of course, our favorite one, Christmas Bazaar, coming up right around the corner. So, a lot of work goes into that. Those ladies over there and the teachers that are there actually do a great job. Aaron and them did a fantastic job on all that. And I think Dr. Wright did a great job thanking everybody for what we've done at the farm. Everybody's been involved with it, and there's still going to be more of us. As you all know from hearing what we talked about with the grants, there's a lot of that out there. We've been in contact, or I have been. We've talked with getting the fountain fixed. As you don't know, didn't know it's damaged, had a short in it, but we've been working with the company that actually installed it. And they actually are helping us get it back up and running. And we'll have that hopefully back in there soon. We've worked with the conservation department already. They've already closed what we need to do with the pond, to get rid of some of the, and they don't want us to get rid of all, but it's shatter duck. So everybody thinks it's lily pads. It's not, it's good stuff. So the shatter ducks are good, nothing wrong with it, we just have to control it. So they're working with us, and they'll be down in spring to help us really work on the pond and make it look really good. So again, some of those projects where we can maybe teach fishing, do some of those classes. So we're excited. Looks good. So that's all we've been doing. So having fun. So any questions? So thank you for everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next on the agenda is our student advisors report, so we're going to hear from Julie Collins.
Alrighty. How you doing? Okay. Pretty excited, yeah, how fun. Student mental health. So first, we're gonna talk about if this is our job, because mental health can be a very complex topic, especially for public school systems. And I think that the biggest thing we should account for is kind of like how Michael said, the best way to reach our community, make our community better, is to make our students the best they can be. And by educating them about mental health and identifying students that have mental health issues, we can make our community better one step at a time. All right, so how bad is this issue for our community as a nation? Kind of awful. It's very strange. The field of psychology was born in Germany, but in the 1900s, the U.S. became the leading researcher in all of psychology, and we still are. So we have some of the best psychologists, psychiatrists in the world, but we have a terrible time getting treatment. Only 42.6% of people with a mental illness will receive treatment. That's especially concerning for us when you realize that half of all serious mental illnesses start showing symptoms before the age of 14. So that's like your major depressive disorders, your schizophrenia, those really serious issues start appearing in kids before the age of 14. And half of all adolescents will meet the criteria for a diagnosable mental illness. They can grow out of it. Mental illnesses are like, imagine high blood pressure. If you change your exercise routine or your diet, you can get better blood pressure. If you change your
mental state, maybe you change your friend group, maybe you change your school, you can outgrow a mental illness. Alright, so the prevalence of mental illness in U.S. adults, because that's what our kids are just future adults. So it is important to note that women are more likely to have a mental illness than men, but men are 3.5 times more likely to commit suicide. And that leads me to my next point with health services received in the past year. Women are far more likely to receive health treatment than men. But these numbers are obviously ridiculously low. We want 100% of our people who have an illness to receive treatment, right? We're not even getting half. So most psychologists attribute this to our culture. We're a very self-made culture, kind of tough it up culture, which has worked great for some parts of our society, but like manning up obviously isn't helping our young men with depression or anxiety. So it's important to move past that. And that's one of the things we need to teach our kids is that you should ask for help when you notice something. Because asking for help can be difficult. Alright, so the most common mental illnesses, anxiety disorders are the most common, with just over 30% of adolescents having them. They have the second lowest rate of treatment after depression. So 13% of teens have depression. Only 28% receive treatment, which is kind of awful because depression can also co-occur with anxiety disorders, and it can co-occur with substance abuse disorders, which are a huge thing, like the vaping. That's why getting those educational lessons and the therapy could be an amazing benefit to those kids. ADHD is classified as a mental health disorder, and I want to put it up here because it has a 77% treatment rate. Yeah, you're doing good. So anxiety disorders and depression are big, like umbrella terms for about 40 or 50 tinier disorders. So here's a few of the ones that affect children. Social anxiety can cause kids to be so anxious about social situations that they'll just miss school, causing their attendance to plummet dramatically. So identifying kids with social anxiety can up our attendance, up grade levels. Separation anxiety is common in young children. Many of them grow out of it, but identifying those kids who have extreme separation anxiety can help because it makes them more likely to develop a different anxiety disorder later in life. So it makes them higher risk, and we want to identify those high-risk kids so that we can inform their parents, inform their doctors, so they can keep their eye out for any more symptoms. OCD is commonly diagnosed at age 10. Generalized anxiety disorder is a very high, like the kids who are always second-guessing themselves, even if they're in the top of the class. That's their kind of anxiety disorder. Panic disorders involve panic attacks, and selective mutism, average diagnosis age 5. It's not very common, but I put it on here because school plays a huge part of their diagnosis. Age 5, whenever they go to school, that's when everyone notices their symptoms. So identifying those kids has really helped with their treatment options. Kids with selective mutism almost always get treatment because it's such an obvious group of symptoms. All right, so here's my suggestions for teachers. So teachers aren't really required to have as much training as is really necessary by the state of Missouri. We do a great job of training our teachers, but we can do an even greater job if we use those teachers to help identify these kids. So training teachers on the symptoms rather than so they can inform parents and doctors. Anyway, also teachers should have reasonable ways to report behaviors without reporting them, There are emergency circumstances where teachers should be able to call admin and be like, this kid is in danger or this or that. But there's a lot of circumstances where a student will show concerning behavior that is not necessarily concerning enough to report them to an administrator. So tiny things, like a kid in first hour saying, I wish I could sleep all the time. That doesn't seem like much, but maybe in that context, it was a little concerning for that teacher. So I'm suggesting creating a report system that that teacher can put into a computer. I heard this one concerning thing, and then maybe that's a first hour teacher in math, a 7th hour teacher in English, can see that report and say, I heard something exactly similar, I would like to report that. And after a while, these tiny concerning statements can lead to a much bigger concern. So this allows teachers to communicate without emailing each other, without being concerned with administration. This also allows doctors and parents to communicate. For example, if a student has specific tics before panic attacks or specific triggers like phobias, this would be able to communicate that effectively to teachers. So if a kid has a snake phobia, maybe not put them in Dr. Posey's room with the snakes. And if they start displaying tics of panic attacks, then escort them to the nurse's office. It would make it easier and simpler for those teachers. And for the administration, it would provide a timeline of concerning behavior and symptoms so they can look back and say there was a clear projection of the student in the future. And they can determine when the best time to call parents, call doctors, that kind of thing is. All right. I skipped ahead, I'm sorry. I had another slide. That's exactly what I just said. I just forgot to change slides, so we're gonna move on. All right, so curriculum changes. We can encourage stress reduction strategies. My apologies. So like, if we start using a math test as a teaching lesson in 5th and 6th grade, if we teach them how to take tests without stress, because, for example, Ms. Etherton had a big college biology test, and all of our students were stressed. If we teach them proper stress reduction techniques for tests in 5th and 6th grade with a math test, by the time they take standardized tests in high school, like the ACT, the PSAT, they'll be able to be more calm. Really, ACT is not as hard as you think. It's that anxiety of, it's the ACT that gets you. We can encourage students to be identifiers in their peers. We can teach them if the peer is showing these symptoms, or if you're showing these symptoms, maybe it's time to report them to an adult. We can encourage parent discussion, because parents can just be as ill-informed as students in regards to this topic. It's not really a topic we talk about. Like, no one says, oh, you got depression, you know how it is. You know, it's a very taboo subject, and the more discussion we can encourage, the better the okay. We can encourage treatment. So our school has done a lot to give students options for treatment, but only a fraction of the students who need treatment will get these options. Only that 42% who receive treatment will get those options. And that's heartbreaking. Like, you guys put out all this stuff to help our kids, and only less than half of them will actually use this stuff. Half of the people who will need it will use these options with like harm treating, the substance abuse counseling. So by encouraging students to take these options, to look past the culture of tough it up and attempt to make themselves better, we can really help our students. Cool, I think that's it. Here's some further reading if you guys are interested. Those are mostly the citations for the statistics I used. Okay, that's it. Thank you. Thank you.
Wow, I think our representatives next year have some big shoes to fill. Okay, so that completes all of our reports for this month. And we do not have any unfinished business, so that leads us directly into new business. And the first item on that agenda has to do with our new agriculture course. So I need a motion to approve the addition of the agricultural 2 course. Okay, first John and second Beth. What? Didn't you say first? Oh, it was Rob, sorry. Your lips moved.
Yeah, I know, I came from this way.
You threw your voice. No. Okay, do we have any discussion on
this motion.
I have just a couple questions.
Okay.
When I was reading this, I think it said no cost to the district the first year, and then after that, we will be relying on grants.
Yes. If we decide to add this, what we'll do is fill out that CTE application, much like we did last year with the FACTS program, if you'll remember. And then the state, through the enhancement, the base of enhancement grant, gives a set amount of money for this year for the business program to $22,000. So it's minimal money, but for next year, we would just rely on that funding. Again, that could go away at any time, so I can't guarantee
It could.
anything, but,
Okay, it could go away to.
oh, sure.
The state is like a crazy child.
Yes.
And if that were to happen, then what would our options be?
We would just, Jessica and I have spoken about this, because like we talked about, we couldn't guarantee any funding for next year, we'll just do what we have to do to keep going. I mean, I'm hoping there'll be something.
Okay. And I think my other question is, our instructor is certified, I guess, in agriculture.
Correct.
What happens if that instructor leaves, or, then what do we do instructor-wise after
We have a
that?
backup instructor.
What?
We have a backup instructor. That's why Miss Etherton's here today. She too is very interested in agriculture. She's not certified currently, but she's interested.
Okay.
And any of our other science teachers could also look into becoming certified if they chose. Sorry, Mrs. Wilson.
Any other questions?
I think this is a great step to building this program, and we've got so many new opportunities now with the farm. It's great.
One thing important to note, you already have an approved CTE program, you also have to have a student organization with that. Heading that up as well. The FFA.
Okay. There's other discussion. Let's vote to approve the addition of the agriculture to the, all in favor? Motion carries. Next item is the early graduation application, or applications. So we need to approve for early graduation with the understanding that if all requirements are not met, the students will not graduate early, correct? Do I have a motion to approve these applications? Thank you.
Second.
John and Rob. Second. Any questions or concerns or items to discuss? Okay, let's vote then to approve the applications for early graduation. All in favor? All right. The last item will be to approve a bid from the United Petroleum Service for the purchase and installation of new fuel pumps and control system in the amount of $45,000. Is that right? We have the number correct? $45,990.77 from United Petroleum Service. Do I have a motion? Thanks, Brent.
Second.
Concerns or questions about the fuel pumps, right? Okay, all in favor of approving this bid? Motion carries. All right. So, we are adjourning the meeting. We amended the agenda earlier. We will not be discussing the Chestnut MOU and, or approve it this month. That will be next month. So, a motion to recess open session. Second.